There are so many of us as women who find ourselves exhausted. Somewhere along the way, we've accepted running on empty as just another part of life. But I don't believe that's how we were meant to live. Today, I'm joined by Carlie Zak for part one of a very special conversation about burnout, alignment, and what it really means to support our health and well being. One of the things I love about this conversation is that I don't have to have all the answers. I continually turn to the Spirit of God for wisdom. Trusting Him for me guides me through conversations like this, and she totally gets it. And my hope is that it reveals something that you can glean from. I know you, as my listener, enjoy shorter episodes. That is why I decided this conversation has to be two parts. So let's jump into the first part. Are you eating well, moving your body, maybe even reading labels and still thinking, I'm doing all the healthy things, so why do I still feel off? If that's you, you're in the right place. Welcome to Start Living Sustainable. Hi, I'm Cynthia, a non-toxic lifestyle strategist who learned the cost of exposure the long way, years before most women even know to look. Now you can start where I wish I could have, so your body can respond to the work you're already doing, not fight against it. Because when your foundation is supported, your sleep, hormones, clarity, and even your workouts finally catch up with your intentions without turning your life into a project. If you're ready, let's begin. Today we're talking about something every woman can relate to, every single one of us. Yeah, we don't always stop to think about it, and that is energy. We all need it. We're all sometimes lacking it. I'm not just talking about getting through our day. I'm actually talking about having enough energy to enjoy our lives, to take care of the people that we love, and still have something left over for ourselves. Joining me today is Carlie Zak. She's founder of Vitality Habits. And Carlie helps women move beyond burnout by building a simple, sustainable way of living and habits that support their body, their emotions, their mind, and the daily rhythms in their lives. One of the reasons I invited Carlie to join us is that we met on a business conference not too long ago. We both immediately discovered that we shared some important things in common. That is women's health and wellness. Although our work comes from different perspectives, we both believe that lasting wellness isn't built on one healthy habit. It's shaped by these small choices that we make every single day, and by creating the conditions that allow our bodies to thrive. Carlie, welcome to Start Living Sustainable. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this conversation because it is important for women to know that there's a way to expand their capacity, not just cram more into what they already have and what they're already handling, but to actually have more energy so that they can pour more into who and what they love. And I find that it's easy for us to be motivated as women by thinking, oh, I need more so I can give to others. But I like what you said about us having more so that there's actually some left over for us too. Because it's my belief that each one of us is an expression of who God is. And so when we can be at our full capacity and energy and we're expressing that, there is something beautiful that happens. And it's not with the intention of giving to others necessarily, but it's with the intention of being the best version of ourselves. So I'm excited to get into that today.
I love that because so often our passions grow out of something we've experienced in our own lives. What was a particular moment or experience that made you realize this was the work that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I have always been entrepreneurial. I always knew I wanted my own business. And I ended up getting into a multi level marketing or network marketing company. And I loved it. I loved their products. Actually, I still use a lot of their products, but I started building my business with them and it kind of took off. I was doing really well. I reached the top 250 salespeople in all of North America. And I had two little boys that I was raising at the same time. And I ended up burning out really hard. It took me out for 5 months. I had to pause everything I was doing, naps every day, specific diet, just to heal. And the funny thing is that my business at that time was in the health and wellness realm. And yet I didn't understand really what health and wellness was. I thought it was eating healthy and being fit, like working out or being active. And if I did those physical things, and of course, I'm a believer as well. So I brought in the spirituality. As long as I'm reading my Bible and praying and doing those things, then I'll be healthy. So it was a bit of a betrayal for me when that wasn't enough.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. Sometimes it's those difficult experiences in life that actually cause us to really look at what it means to be healthy and what it means to be well. To your point, I think so many of us, when we think of health and wellness, we think of food or fitness, but there's so much more. Why do you think so many women are struggling with the lack of energy right now in their lives?
Honestly, it's not the answer that everyone's going to expect, but I really have come to find that it's misalignment. So, when we are doing healthy things, air quotes, they actually don't work for us unless we're actually living in alignment. It goes way deeper than just managing stress or, eating healthy or doing these things that are fairly common when people think about health. It's actually living in alignment inside. So, you bring together your personal experience and there's a process there of surrendering and of finding alignment. And that guides you into what to do. Because sometimes, yeah, a good workout or a run or something is going to be healthy for you. Other times, you might need a nap. So, how do you determine that? And is it in a schedule where, okay, every Wednesday is my nap day, every Tuesday is my workout day? Because sometimes that just causes even more stress. To me, the answer that I've found is alignment. Even in my burnout story, the reason I really burned out, it's not because I was doing things wrong. It's not because I wasn't being perfect enough or good enough or I didn't know enough. It was because I wasn't living in alignment. I was living doing everything I thought I should be doing and trying to be that perfect business owner, mom, doing everything until I ran myself ragged.
So true. Women may not realize that they are not living in alignment with their values, what's important to them. And it's all personalized, obviously, because everyone's lifestyle is so different. Women are working really, really hard to feel better. And that right there is a contradiction in and of itself. And yet many of them still are running on empty. So can you give us another example of how alignment would fit into a mom's life with two little kids?
I think our two biggest limitations as moms and entrepreneurs is our energy and our time, right? And so to get more energy, it feels like we need to spend more time investing in our energy. But it actually can be so much easier than that. And the best way that I can explain alignment is a feeling, a sense of peace. So, my number one tip for coming back into alignment is to pause and notice when you're out of alignment. You can't come back in if you don't know when you're slipping out. So, we have to identify a trigger for different women that can feel different. For some, it's more an anxiety feeling. For others, it's more of a pressure to do more or to perform more. It may not be associated with anxiety, but what I have found is that it's being discontent. When you feel that pressure or could be anxiety, overwhelm, discontent, and when lies start coming in, like you're not good enough, you're not doing enough, there's not enough time, then that's a trigger. That isn't something where you can shame yourself. Oh my gosh, I have such a negative mindset. Now I got to fix that too, right? It's a trigger for you to pause and to find that realignment. So I've actually created a 15-minute rhythm. I love rhythms over routines because you can find triggers. And when something's triggering, then you pull in the rhythm to respond to it instead of just reacting and surviving and pushing through. And so I've created a 15-minute realignment rhythm for myself. And I have rhythm planning in my Vitality Habits program, which I'm actually going to give away for free today. We'll share the link at the end.
Okay.
So then you can create a little rhythm so that when you feel that trigger, whatever it is specifically for you, because it's very personal, right?
Yes.
Then you can learn to tune in and realign. And there's a few steps you can go through. And since we are As much as we're individual, unique beings and things are different for everyone, we're all humans. We all have a body, a mind, emotions, a spirit. So there are some practical things we can walk through to realign each one of those areas.
Carly, why do you think so many women accept feeling exhausted as a normal part of life?
Well, normal is a hard word to define.
Yeah, right?
I think it's always changing in our culture, the new normal, the new normal. And so I don't think normal is a goal. I don't think we should try to be feeling normal because I think normal is being exhausted and accepting that busyness is directly related to your value because our productivity and our results are often what we rely on for our value when that's not true. As a human being, you innately have value. Just like I said, you're a reflection of a specific part of who God is and you're here to
Yes.
reflect that. And it's not based on what you get done or what the results are. So definitely comes back to your sense of value and what's normal in the world is basing that on accomplishments.
Carly, as Christians, we do have to understand that difference. We're not to be conformed of the habits and the ways of the world. So we do have to tune in to what the Holy Spirit is trying to show us and teach us about what's going on in our lives. Because something is normal doesn't mean that it's good for us. You talk about vitality rather than simply avoiding burnout in the work that you do. What's the biggest difference there?
Yeah, I love the word vitality because it actually just means life or life force. And so it's not just about doing the right things to avoid disease or cancer or burnout or any of these things. It's not doing that out of a fear that something might come upon you, but it's actually completely the opposite perspective of choosing to step into life. And it's when you get to eat healthy. It's when you get to go for a walk. It's when you start to see what we think is healthy as not something we have to do because we need to or else we'll get sick, but as something that is a privilege and a way of life that brings freedom and joy and vitality to us. So it's just
Yes.
really a perspective shift.
I love that distinction because I don't think women were created just to survive their days. How does a woman know whether she's surviving or actually thriving in her day to day?
That's such a good question. And it's kind of sad we need to ask that question because I think that we often are numbing ourselves where it doesn't feel appropriate to be tired. It doesn't feel okay to be sad or maybe suffering inside. As women, we bear burdens and we carry things, oftentimes in prayer, oftentimes just because we're women. We care for our children, we care for our
Yes.
communities. And this is something that is a gift of women, right? And so that can become something that's heavy and weighs us down too. But it feels often like we're not allowed to be heavy. We're not allowed to be weighed down. We have to keep putting a smile on our face and keep showing up for everyone else, no matter what we're feeling inside. And so then
Right.
to ask a question like this is really saying that we're numb enough that we don't know when we're not okay. And I didn't till physically I was done.
I think it's common women don't allow themselves the capacity and the time to recover because there's a lot of pressures in life that we're dealing with as women, as moms. And I think that's such an important distinction that you're making there. When a woman comes to you, for instance, I know that you're working with clients and they say, I don't feel like myself anymore. What do you usually find is the root of all of that?
That's so good. I think that it has to do a lot with psychological conditioning and patterns that we grow up with, right? So there is some rewiring that can be done, which sounds scary, but it's actually fairly simple when you get down to it. It's just reinforcing the truth. So with alignment, I like to say that we align with three things: our identity, who we are as an individual, should shape our life, right? Ideally, and with truth, which for me has been the word of God, is like the ultimate truth, but there's also universal truths like gravity. It's just a fact. And so if we're not aligning with things that are true or even acknowledging our circumstances, like right now, I am sitting in my office, this is true, right? But I don't have to acknowledge that. I could be thinking I'm in a dream world or something else. And so we have to acknowledge truth. And then the third thing and final thing is our direction. When we align with the direction we're feeling called to go in. And so when we can bring those three things back in, it's important. You asked specifically about identity, which is one of those things to align with. When we feel like we've lost ourselves, it means that we're living for a standard of what we think, our perception of goodness and righteousness. What we're actually doing is sabotaging ourselves and therefore sabotaging the calling of God on our life because we have an image of what we think is the right thing. So, what this means is I'm in control. I know what is right. I know what is best. And I don't care how I feel. I don't care what's going on around me because this is the thing I have to achieve to have value. So, not only are we putting our sight on our own direction and our own understanding, right? Lean not on your own understanding,
Right.
but we're actually putting ourselves in the place of God. We're putting ourselves in the place of control. And even if you aren't a Christian listening to this, like, and if you're not a believer in God, that's okay. But it is widely known we need to allow ourselves to not be the controllers of the entire world and every outcome, that we lose ourselves.
Right. It becomes overwhelming trying to live up to some other standard outside of the truth of what and who God created us to be. And I
Yes.
think when we tune in to what that is, it'll even reduce our stress, which can affect our hormones. And like you said, our identity. So the idea here is to get in touch with who we really are inside. The Word of God tells us that we're to please Him and not to try and live up to standards of the world. What are some of the clues that tell you it's more important than just being busy, thinking that's being productive?
We struggle with just 5 minutes of, right?
Yes, right.
But what is coming up in those 5 minutes is actually a really fun test. If you can just set aside the self judgment for a moment and actually just do the 5 minutes and just kind of see yourself, like observe yourself, look at how you struggle. Why are you twitching? Why can't you be quiet? Honestly, it is going to be because you're avoiding stuff. So, what are you avoiding? Lots of times it's fears. If I don't get that done, what's that going to say about me? What if I don't matter? What if I'm not needed? What if I'm not going to make an impact? What if I can't help anybody? What if my children don't grow up to be well adjusted humans, right? And we have all these fears. So instead of facing them, instead of making peace, we avoid and we stay busy. And even at the cost of our health, we will do that because it is easier for the majority of people. And this is just what I've seen throughout my life, throughout my business here of doing vitality habits and helping people with this stuff is that it's easier to be sick than it is to face your fears and to face the things you're avoiding inside.
That is what you see happening to women in the lives that are around you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Our bodies do whisper to us. If we sit still long enough
Yes.
and just tune in, our bodies are always communicating how we feel, what's going on inside. And if we don't listen, they'll start shouting. I think the shouting is when you get sick and you have to deal with what's right in front of you. You can't avoid it any longer. So the idea, I would think, is to be able to like yourself long enough to sit still with yourself.
Yes. It's so good. Well, and I want to bring something else in here too, because we can say that, we just need to listen to ourselves. But in practice, that can be really hard, especially if that's a new habit that you're bringing in. But there are some things, and this I think is up your alley, Cynthia, of expertise that we can do to make it easier to hear ourselves, to make it easier to sit and be calm and be quiet. We don't often think of healthy habits, including environment, like our home environment. But it absolutely is how you, especially as a woman, generally, we're the gatekeepers of our homes. And so, how we treat our homes, the products we allow into our homes, and what we're exposing ourselves to in our homes, it either creates an environment where you can find alignment, where you can tune in and listen, where you can try to enter into a semblance of peace and rest, or it works against you. And
Yes.
so, sometimes the easiest way to start tuning in, The easiest way to start finding alignment is to actually start detoxing your home, and that will support you. It's such a gift to me because it's a physical action you can take, especially if you're in busy do mode, right? Add some of these things to your list. But what's going to happen is you're going to start to not have as many headaches, not have that scratchy throat anymore, not have the brain fog. So then that makes the other healthy habits, like tuning in, so much easier.
Yes, you're talking my language, Carlie. Our mental load, all of the thoughts and all of the things that we think about, our racing mind can actually create moments where we can't recover well. And what triggers some of these headaches and what triggers some of these stress moments in our lives, we don't realize it's things that are surrounding us in our environment that's actually depleting our energy. There's a lot to look at beyond food and fitness. And it's not just one thing, it's an accumulation of a lot of little things that you overlook and you don't pay attention to. So, have women been conditioned to ignore what our bodies are trying to tell us?
I think we kind of have, but I don't think it was intentional. I think that we allow ourselves to be conditioned this way because we long to be seen as valuable and beautiful and worthy and effective and important. And so we do whatever we can to feel those things. But what we forget, or what we maybe never knew, is that those things don't come by doing. Those things are a part of who we are being.
Love that. It's so true. Pushing through, forcing things is not what we want to do. I feel women in this society wear exhaustion almost as a badge of honor. We've got to get past that.
Absolutely. I definitely have been one of those women. My dad is a very successful person. His marriage with my mom, and he's an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to impress him, and I've always wanted him to recognize that I have what it takes. That's what we want from our friends, from our husbands, even from our children. And I don't think that's unhealthy. I think that's like a core desire because guess what? That's who you are. You want other people to see who you are. Approach it by doing more or by trying to say, like, I'm super exhausted because I do so many things so effective. So you should recognize me. There's other ways of recognition. And it's so interesting. I was looking up some verses before starting this from the Bible. And one that came up for me was, rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. 1 Peter 3:4. And I was like, God, why is this one coming up? It's not about environment. It's not about health per se, but it is about our innate value. When we know it, that gentle, quiet spirit to me is confidence. It's assurance. It's when I walk into the room, I don't need to be exhausted to prove to you that I gave enough this week, right? I am valuable and I know who I am. And if I don't, which happens, I'm going to realign. I have tools that I can use to realign. And I'm doing things that matter. I'm not doing things that are supposed to matter or that should matter, right?
I absolutely agree with that, Carlie. I feel like, of course, we want approval from those that we love and those that are around us. But ultimately, we really are supposed to be doing what we're doing to please God. I love that when you look at the truth, when you look at the Word of God, He will let us know that He's the one that rewards us. He sees us. Our identity is in Him. So when we please Him, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Hopefully, everyone else will be happy with that, but it's really about us walking in the truth of who we are. Friend, I hope today's conversation reminded you that exhaustion doesn't have to become your normal. Next week, Carlie and I move from understanding why so many women are running on empty to exploring practical changes you can begin making today, starting with your daily habits and the environment that you live in. And if you're wondering where to begin, you'll find links in the show notes down below to connect with both of us. I'll see you back here next week for part 2.